There must have been a moment at the beginning where we could have said no, but somehow we missed it. Umineko begins at the same place that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern begin their play, at the moment just after the cutoff. Battler is already at the airport. He has left his sister behind. The choice he made to return to Rokkenjima is, for all of its cataclysmic importance, not an on-screen decision. Why? Because it wasn't important to him. He didn't think much about it. He's living with his father once again, so there's no reason not to go. Ignorance is such a small sin to have such a high kill count. Spoiler warning. This video spoils all of Umineko. It is intended to be viewed by people who have read all of Umineko or never intend to read it. Should you at any point think to yourself, wow, this sounds like something I would like, stop watching this and go play this game. Immediately. Never think, I'm already spoiled. You aren't. There is still much you do not know. Thank you. Umineko, When They Cry, is a visual novel written by Ryukishi07 that is a love letter to mystery novels, a statement directly to you, the audience, that if you have a true crime podcast, Ryukishi07 hates your guts, and is a deeply moving and poignant 1.3 million word behemoth about the importance of constantly seeking to understand the world, while still accepting that the human heart will forever remain unknowable. The premise is such. Rokkenjima is an island cut off from the world. There is no proof that can be brought off the island and checked for validity. So the witches from the phantasmal world and the humans of reality must exist side by side, their truths clashing with each other as both sides conceal the heart of Beatrice and the single truth of the Rokkenjima incident. While the audience is shown the magic, they must analyze the perspectives shown to find the human truth, e.g., the solvable mystery. Then, to prevent themselves from being blind to the point of Umineko, they must also then analyze the witchcraft to understand the emotional truths that best present themselves in a way that makes the motives possible to guess at. I am getting ahead of myself. Rokkenjima is an island cut off from the world. The Ushiromaya clan patriarch, Kinzo, bought it from the government decades ago, and on it he built a western mansion that became the seat of power for the Ushiromaya family. That patriarch still resides there, along with his heir and eldest son, Krauss, Krauss's wife, Natsuhi, and their daughter, Jessica. Every year, the Ushiromaya clan patriarch hosts a family gathering where all of his family, even the ones who normally never set foot on the island, come to visit and discuss business. This includes the second child and eldest daughter, Eva Ushiromaya, her husband, Hideyoshi, and their son, George. Then the third child and second son, Rudolph, his wife, Kairi, and his son, Battler. And, last but not least, the fourth child, Rosa, and her daughter, Maria. In addition to this cast, there are 5 servants on the island: Shannon, Kanon, Yoda, Kumasawa, and Genji. Oh, and Nanjo, the family doctor. This means there are 18 people on the island. And the witch, Beatrice. Beatrice has sent a letter announcing her presence and her intent. If the riddle that sits within the mansion is not solved, she will begin an arcane ritual to resurrect herself, one that requires the killing of 13 out of the 18 people present. And a storm has come in, it seems. For at least the next 2 days, no one will be able to enter. and no one will be able to leave. And in the end, none shall survive. Let's try this explanation one more time. Rokkenjima is an island cut off from the world by time. It has been 12 years since the Rokkenjima incident, where only one survivor emerged from the island, Eva Ushiromiya, who had been miraculously spared due to being outside the blast zone of a mysterious force that has killed everyone else on the island. Despite all manner of rumors whirling around her, she has never spoken on the truth of what happened on that island, and took it with her to her own deathbed, cursing Battler's younger sister, Angie, who was spared from the disaster by not being present on the island, to forever grapple with the fact that her family is trapped on Rokkenjima, unable to come home. The only way she can free them is by finding out the truth. The only truth she has access to is what has survived the present day. Let us list out these truths. Natsuhi's diaries, Krauss's business records, Jessica's school records, Eva's diary, Eva's business practices, Hideyoshi's old business records, George's school and work records, Rudolph's business records, Kairi's diaries, Kairi's family's practices, Battler's old room, Rosa's business records, Maria's diary, a letter sent out to Angie and to the family of every servant and the doctor that died, from Beatrice, offering them a large amount of money. These letters were sent before the incident occurred, though they only received them after. Oh, and Beatrice's stories, the killer's very own confession. That should count for a lot, shouldn't it? Except there are two of them, and in both of the confessions, Eva dies. The rest of the stories that Angie can read are written by a mysterious author whose only claim to credibility is that they understand the message that Beatrice had sent, and could thus promise that the same truth that was in those two stories was still there in their own. It would be a more difficult truth to swallow if the first of those stories did not slyly, almost loudly, declare Eva the killer. There is nothing more entrancing than that, right? Especially for Angie. Now, I've gone through episode 3, Banquet of the Golden Witch, and attempted to create a way to say that Eva killed none of those people. And it's possible. You can do it. You can point out a way to say that someone else could have killed every single person. But that's just doing it Battler's way. Is it true to say that it's possible that Eva really was absolutely 100% innocent? That she did nothing wrong? That she survived through chance and luck, and greed played no part in her decision-making process? It's possible to say that. But it's not provable. It's not even probable. And it is still not a kind story. Creating an underlying story where Eva is innocent in episode 3 requires you to say things like, Rosa killed her own child in a fit of rage. Shannon murdered her fiancé as he knelt before her, crying. Rudolph and Kairi shot Hideyoshi in cold blood, and then waited in hiding in order to murder Krauss and Natsuhi and Nanjo. Is that better than if Eva had really just killed most of them herself? This is how truth exists in Umineko. A murder mystery story that requires you to understand that the fantasy elements, and even some of the elements that masquerade as normal elements, are all worthy of doubting, but also do not exist without reason. The story that you are seeing, the magic, the wonder, the occult, is a story that exists as a happier tale than the non-magical version that exists within it by dint of its core idea. that Beatrice, the 19th person, is committing the crimes. The perfect scapegoat, Beatrice can be anywhere, can do anything, and is not bound by earthly ideas. She isn't doing this for vengeance, for money, for her reputation. When she is committing the murders, then everyone can say it wasn't that the family's many broken bonds and exploitably weak morals led to a night of death, brother against brother. It was simply the work of a witch. As you can see from the title, this is part 1 of a very long series I intend to write. This particular essay will focus on Krauss, Natsuhi, and their daughter Jessica. My initial intent was to do episode by episode, loop by loop. But honestly, if you've watched my Utena videos, you already know there's no way that would work out. Linearity is not my strength. Soliloquy is. At the beginning of Macbeth, 3 witches greet Macbeth and tell him that he will be king, and they hail him for this. And then they greet his friend, Banquo, and tell him that his shall be the line of kings. When Macbeth writes of this to his wife, only the first part of this message makes it to her eyes. Krauss Ushiromaya, had he lived in the beautiful world of 2020 instead of the world of 1986, would have invested in Bitcoin. And he would have stayed invested in Bitcoin. He would have watched his investments balloon into 20 times their original size. And then, because he could not see the scam inherent to the system, he would have watched as all of that money disappeared as the market crashed. Sadly for the viewer, we were robbed of him in attempting to explain to Natsuhi that she's too uneducated to understand why Vcoin is the future of investment, and instead have to comfort ourselves with listening to him talk about how his ventures into moon tourism will definitely, surely, pay off next year. So the charade only needs to last just a little bit longer. Of Krauss, Kinzo says this: Krauss is a fool who squanders money like water, who throws away 2 gold coins in order to obtain 1, and then he has the gall to claim he earned money. Of Natsuhi, Kinzo says nothing. She's not his family, after all. Natsuhi Ushiromaya was born to a high-class family and raised with the idea that she would be a shrine maiden. Unfortunately, that family looked down on Kinzo Ushiromaya for his lesser wealth and status. Kinzo's vengeance against that family for not respecting him came at a vicious cost. Their precious daughter, offered as a sacrifice to slake his anger. She would marry his eldest son. She would move to Rokkenjima. She would bear an heir. She would never see her family again. Krauss was happy to marry someone like Natsuhi, someone who was shy and beautiful, and not well educated in business the way that Eva was. Someone who could only look to him for help because she had no one else. Someone who accepted no. Someone who was proud of her role as a dedicated wife. Someone who never looked down on him. Someone who respected his status as the Ushiromaya heir and who trusted his decisions. Natsuhi's memories of getting to know Krauss are complicated. She remembers him taking her traveling, showing her more of the world. It's a good memory for her. She remembers the romance of their youth. Her diary records her anguish and humiliation at marrying him, and the fact that she'd hated that he seemed to try and make it up to her through vague niceties. Natsuhi's life on Rokkenjima was not a good life. She struggled to get pregnant, and went through a great deal of effort to overcome a deficiency that was not at all her fault. Kinzo looked down on her. Krauss was unhappy with her failure. Eva took advantage of her lack of child to add her own husband and child into the family roster. 19 years ago, Kinzo took ruthless advantage of her. One last time. Into her arms, he thrust an infant and told her, "This will be your child. Raise it as your own." Natsuhi hated that baby. She hated that baby so much that she begged a witch to kill it. And so Beatrice did that dirty deed. The nursemaid and the child, both gone into the sea. Genji covered up the murder. The next year, Jessica was born, and Krauss had his heir, and everything was wonderful. Except Natsuhi was still trapped on Rokkenjima. 9 years later, Shannon begins working at the mansion. She is young and clumsy, and Natsuhi cannot get rid of her. Because despite being the lady of the manor, Natsuhi has no true power over the servants. Genji has the crest, and she does not. But she can make them miserable. On Rokkenjima, that is the easiest thing in the world. Jessica was born on Rokkenjima, raised as the young miss of a wealthy estate, sent to a good school on a different island, and she dealt with her feelings of being trapped in a life she didn't really want by being the lead singer in her school band. She had a crush on Cannon, a young servant around her own age, and she struggled with her grades, and she felt sad that her parents didn't understand her passions. But still, she loves them, and she understood, in a tormented, teenage kind of way, that they loved her as well, and were doing what they thought was best for her. Also, from time to time, her grandfather would beat her with a wooden sword. 2 years before the Rokkenjima incident, Kinzo Ushiromaya dies. Of the full-time residents of the island, only Jessica does not know. She is joined in ignorance a year later as Gota joins the full-time residents, the only servant on the island chosen by Natsuhi and not by Genji. Kinzo, the one nominally in charge of the hiring of servants, is now a ghostly puppet who only speaks through Natsuhi. She is the one and only head of staff. She could fire Shannon and Cannon now, but she can't, because they know that Kinzo is dead. Kinzo's death brings forth Krauss's one and only confession of failure. "Natsuhi," he says, "Natsuhi, the money is gone. The house is mortgaged. Jessica's future is in peril. The symbol of the Ushiromaya family is on the verge of being lost, and nothing can be done." And the final image Natsuhi has of her family shatters. Krauss cannot support her. In this, Krauss's one moment of genuine fragility that he ever shows her, he tells her that he can take the brunt of it alone, that he's put money for her in a separate account, that she can divorce him and take Jessica with her, and she'll be able to escape financial ruin, if not social ruin. And Natsuhi says no. She won't leave him. Escape is rejected. She'll die on Rokkenjima. "Krauss," she says, "the witches have ordained your coming as king. You can't back down now. Cover your own bloody hands. I'll hide the body." The first question arc and the first answer arc, this would be episodes 1 and 5, involve Natsuhi the most. because Natsuhi is the one who is in charge of one of the largest chunks of Beatrice's heart. She is the one in charge of the magic that conceals Kinzo's death. Despite this, Natsuhi is not a witch. In Umineko, the transition from a human into a witch comes from pain. When someone experiences so much pain that they cannot bear to stay a human, that's when they become a witch. Natsuhi gets headaches from anxiety. Natsuhi goes into a dead man's room to cry because her husband does not trust her with his weakness and does not support her strengths. Natsuhi hallucinates her father-in-law's ghost helping her, agreeing with her, seeing in her the heir that his son is not. Natsuhi befriends the witch called Beatrice. She cannot do magic, but Beatrice can do magic. She cannot be the Ushiromaya heir, but Krauss can do that. She cannot create the illusion that Kinzo is alive, but the servants can. She does not perceive herself as being the instrument, the controller, so she cannot be a witch. Despite this, Natsuhi's commitment to upholding her part of the illusion is one of the most rigid elements of the entire island. Even once her husband is dead, she'll still say that Kinzo is alive. Even once her daughter is dead, she'll still say that Kinzo is alive. Confronted with his corpse, she'll call it a fake double. Accused of murder, she'll refuse to give an explanation that would exonerate herself. Accused of an act worse than murder, she will give up on her own reputation in the name of refusing to accede to another's truth over her own. Yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him? Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking confession is, despite its great anguish and clarity, still ambiguous in its reveal of her true character. The worried observers, the servant and the doctor, often both played by the witches themselves, comment that even in her sleep she has written a letter and sealed it. This letter is unread during the play. Thus, its contents are trapped within the island, unable to be retrieved. A blank note upon which the readers must project their own thoughts. A confession, perhaps. An unsent missive to her husband, begging him to stop before he kills another wife and child. An unsent missive to her husband, trying to reassert control over him, telling him that he needs to come home and consult with her. A magic spell, cursing at those who watch her at her weakest points. That one's actually unlikely. The witches present in Macbeth are visible to only two people, Macbeth and Banquo. Then they vanish, and Banquo suggests that they might well have been a hallucination in the woods, if not for the accuracy of their prophecy. When next the witches return to the stage, Banquo is dead. Their prophecy now is for Macbeth alone, there in his crown and his castle. In addition to the witches, there is also Banquo's ghost. None can see him except for Macbeth himself, and the audience, of course. We see all that Macbeth sees. We know the truths that only Macbeth knows. He did not tell his wife that he was going to kill Banquo because he did not tell his wife that Banquo's children were destined for kingship. She pushes forward with her ambitions, while Macbeth is hesitant. She cannot understand his fear when victory is so close.
It's because I'm never confident enough, Krauss bemoans to his wife. I always get cold feet right before my big break. That's why I can't make the investments profitable. Krauss has not told her of his searches for the gold. Why? Because even though much of his pride has been lost in front of her, she now sits in on his occasional business meetings, listens to him explain his various ideas, what's happening with the money. He wants her to believe that he really is close to earning it all back. Just one more year, Natsuhi. One more month. And then we can bury Kenzo for good. We don't have to keep sending food up to feed his ghost. But is that really true? It isn't. Or at least, he isn't really confident that it's true. If he really wants to keep the house, to keep his family, to keep his siblings at bay, he needs the gold. The fact that his wife believes him when he tells her the money will come in is a rock around his neck. The illusion that he can't even support with the same spine that Natsuhi uses to resurrect the dead. And so, desperate, he looks to the witch's riddle. But the only answer he finds there is death. During the first night on the island, the various parents get into a loud argument over the inheritance during the dinner. This leads to all of their children exiting the room, being uncomfortable listening to such blatant greed over something they don't think of as that important. Jessica, the one who is the most upset out of all the children, finds the argument upsetting for a number of reasons. 1. She doesn't understand why everyone is trying to get at the inheritance that obviously belongs to her father, Krauss, due to the fact that he's the eldest and heir. Why is everyone upset over this natural state of affairs? 2. It upsets her to perceive her parents and relatives as bad people. This comes into sharp contrast with Battler, who is startled at this perspective due to the fact that he already genuinely does think his father is a bad person, and George, who argues that caring about money isn't a sign of bad character, but simply part of being an adult. 3. She thinks it's a pointless argument, since surely all the adults in that room don't need the money. All of them are just arguing over something that will simply be resolved with the will reading after Kenzo dies. In Knives Out 2019, Meg Thrombey is the granddaughter of the newly deceased Harlan Thrombey, who stands out from her family for being more friendly to the staff than most of them, and was even initially supportive of the fact that Martha should receive some money from the will. However, when she realizes her own college tuition, her own trust fund, her own future is on the line, she changes her tune. Jessica is able to exist like this. What if Krauss or Natsuhi confessed to her that this wasn't some hypothetical addition to wealth, but Jessica's own college fund that was being fought for in that room? Not just her future college fund, but her current house. If Krauss doesn't get more money, then Jessica's status, her house, her security, her servants, all of that is at risk. Does that make her parents bad people, circling like vultures over a rotting corpse? Yes, late into the answer episodes, Jessica explains that she doesn't exactly believe in ghosts, but one day something extremely odd and scary happened to her. After telling the servants that she didn't believe that Beatrice was real, she said she'd go into the VIP room at 3 a.m. and prove that nothing would happen. But when she did that, a lot of scary things happened. there was a creepy doll with offerings around it, the slamming of a door, the rustle of fabric on the bed, a blackout, a creepy phone call from Maria. Now there are 3 explanations for this. 1, that at least 3 people, and there are only 3 to 4 servants on the island, plus Maria, all worked together to scare her, and never, ever admitted to the prank. 2, there was a ghost. 3, Jessica just imagined the whole thing. But since we know 3 isn't true, Jessica is left with 1 and 2, and she has to ask herself, which one of those options is scarier? Well, of course, it's answer 4, the horror of the inherent inequality of master-servant dynamics. Beatrice and Natsuhi were not friends. They did not have tea together. They did not eat cakes together. The only person Natsuhi ever told her favorite season to was Shannon. When Natsuhi screams and says that she has been framed, she says it like this: "The man from 19 years ago has come back to torture me." When Battler calls himself the culprit, he calls himself by that name, the man from 19 years ago. But the witches and sorcerers of the Heavenly Court know that Beatrice's game only has 1 culprit: herself, the Golden Witch. Lambda Delta's game offers 2 truths. 1 truth holds Natsuhi as the culprit, twisted by her hatred of her own husband and her position into seeking to kill the entire family and take the money for herself. The 2nd truth says that it is the man from 19 years ago who is twisted by hatred into killing his own mother and the rest of his family. No gold can assuage this bitter betrayal. His ghost stalks the night, invisible to all except his murderer. In front of his court, Macbeth reels as the ghost of his betrayed friend confronts him, chest still dripping with blood from his mortal wound. He incriminates himself before an audience, before the world. But Lady Macbeth is there to intercede. It's all useless, though. No one is there to defend Natsuhi. She is trapped on Rokkenjima, on the 2nd floor, in her room, on her bed, with only ghosts for company. In Umineko, humans cannot hear red truths. Battler can defend Natsuhi with all his heart, but all he can do is equalize the hands of fate. He cannot make anyone believe him within the world of humans, for all of this is still trapped within Rokkenjima. New truths replace old truths. Sins blacken the innocent. Only Natsuhi's diaries survived her. Only Krauss's collapsed business deals survived him. The only proof of Canon's existence is his one visit to Jessica's school. In successfully blaming himself for episode 5, Battler, like Natsuhi, sacrificed his own honor for something more precious to him: Beatrice. Knowing the true answer to the riddle, he chose a second lie to place alongside the lies Erika had said about Natsuhi. Thus, the 2 truths that he and Erika offer both exist alongside each other, and with that, they conceal the 3rd truth, whose very knowledge would turn the knower into a golden witch. Natsuhi will never be able to scrub the blood from her hands, and forever will she be unable to hear the prophecy of the witches that tell her of her own doom. She does not believe in magic, only human failure. Maria's words tell her nothing. Beatrice's letters avail her not. Virgilia's guidance is lost to her. Unable to take refuge in the words of the witch, nor offer compassion to the baby that she killed, nor the servant that she murdered, nor the body which she hid, nor offer consolation to her daughter, unable to shoot the gun. Her honor blinds her to love, and without love, she cannot leave Rokkenjima. I see I have failed to introduce myself. My name is Zarinthal, Witch of Textual Analysis. Thanks for watching.